Okay, thanks for joining us. I'm David Allott, the APGA Field CISO here at Veeam, and this is our first episode of Reality Check, where I sit down and we look at how forward-thinking enterprises have employed key strategies to achieve data resiliency. And today I'm going to be sitting down with one of Australia's largest telcos. So the Australia telecommunications market's a real high-value concentrated sector, and it's projected to reach around $25 billion by 2033. And that's driven by a couple of things, right? Rapid 5G expansion and a fast-growing broadband sector. And this market focuses on high-speed connectivity and really data-heavy services, with the National Broadband Network, or the NBN, acting as the primary government-backed open access infrastructure. So on that line, talking about NBN, our guest today is one of Australia's largest NBN providers this year. They were founded in regional Victoria in 2003 as Aussie Broadband, and they've grown into one of Australia's largest ISPs, earning the title of Most Trusted Telco in Australia for 5 years running, which is an amazing achievement. So joining me today, I'm excited and pleased to have Ben O'Shea join me, the General Manager for Cloud and SRE at Aussie Broadband. So welcome, Ben.
Hey, Dave. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So look, quite an exciting journey that Aussie Broadband's been on. I think it would be great if you could maybe give us a bit of a background on where you've gone in the last couple of years, and maybe you could just talk a little bit about some of the pressures that you have faced that kind of resonates with the theme that we're talking about today around data resiliency, and sort of share a little bit more about this commitment you have to driving excellence as a service provider in Australia.
Yeah, sure. So Aussie Broadband, as you sort of mentioned, we're the fifth largest telco in Australia, and we started off, in regional Victoria in Morwell. Our roots are really still firmly tied there, although we do have sort of locations, offices, contact centers, warehouses all across the country now. One of the things that makes us stand out as an organisation, one of the things we're really proud of, is our unique values around being good to people, don't be ordinary, be awesome, have fun, think big, and the always popular no bullshit. And that really shapes how we do things as a company, and the values are sort of lived every day. We've grown so much, in our just over 20 years, but particularly in the last 6 years. On the back of COVID, we saw explosive growth within the residential broadband part of our business. And then I guess more recently, we've done a number of acquisitions, and that's fueled obviously that massive growth, particularly in the residential NBN sector. However, we're also providing enterprise-grade data and voice services into enterprise and government customers. But I guess with that rapid growth, both organic and acquisitional, comes, I guess, a degree of complexity in the technology landscape.
Right.
So, through acquisition, thinking about harmonization, integration, and consolidation of systems, and what we do there, organically looking at the platforms that have grown up with us, and how those platforms that have served us really well to this point need to evolve and continue to serve us and meet our needs in the future. And obviously efficiency across all of this. Our core product is NBN residential broadband. Pricing or pricing to all wholesalers is set by NBN, so everyone's on the same playing field, which means we really need to be efficient in the way that we deliver our products and services, in terms of operational overhead, so we can make sure that we're keeping our cost to serve low and our margins high. In the last few years, we've been looking at that technology landscape, and some of our existing data protection platforms were really struggling to cope with the scale the business operates at today. And this problem was becoming increasingly difficult to manage, and diverting resources away from more strategic initiatives. So that's sort of some of the pressures that we're facing, and has sort of led us to the journey that we've been on with Veeam.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. And I think the space that you're operating in Australia, you're obviously classified as a critical service provider or essential service provider.
Yeah.
So, regulation is obviously playing a big role here as well. And you talked about the complexity and some of the challenges that you faced along the way. And so I'm guessing that there must have been some trade-offs as you were sort of, considering costs in terms of driving out that efficiency, the complexity you were talking about, and how quickly you were having to innovate. I'm just wondering, if you could maybe expand a little bit more as you were going through and executing on this strategy. What did you feel like was the hardest? Was it sort of around the people, the process of the technology, as you were sort of looking at evaluating what resiliency means?
Yeah, look, I think there's certainly always a people aspect to anything you do, particularly again in a large company such as ours, where you've brought in people from all of these different companies that are really proud of the platforms that they've built that have served their businesses on. And anytime you sort of go and you try to introduce a change into that, you've got to be sort of really mindful of that aspect of things. But then again, the technology side. So, really looking for platforms that can operate at telco scale with a degree of simplicity. So some of the previous products that we've been using, particularly in the data protection space, probably a little bit more complex than what we would have liked, relying on specialized skill sets to operate and to keep available. And again, sort of looking at the Veeam solution, one thing that we really loved about that is just the simplicity. Like
Mm.
I've said it probably a couple of times, right? You don't need a degree in backup to operate the Veeam solution. So it really pushes, the it empowers our level 1 and level 2 engineers to do more in the platform, which in turn frees up our more senior engineers to be focused on some of that more strategic project and engineering type activities.
I mean, that's great to hear, and thank you as well for bringing that up. I mean, you talked about the scale and the speed at which you have to sort of move at in order to keep ensuring that you can deliver on those promises to the market and to your customers and obviously your stakeholders, but also the regulators.
Mm.
You just maybe go back to the point where you realize that what you were doing was probably not going to scale. The old ways of doing things really needed to change quite dramatically, and you mentioned speed. What was kind of at stake here? I mean, can you expand a little bit more on what was the cost of potentially getting it wrong?
Yeah. So look, I mean, trust is an extremely important factor for us. It's a key part of our value proposition. We've been voted Australia's most trusted telco for 5 years in a row now with Roy Morgan, and again, that's something that we are really, really proud of. If we were to experience a breach that impacted our data or our customers' data, it would erode that trust that we've worked so hard to build, almost instantaneously. And I'm really not sure that we'd be voted the most trusted telco for a 6-year running if that would have happened. So we take confidentiality, availability, and integrity of our data and our customers' data very, very seriously. And a robust data protection platform sits at the heart of providing us, a degree of comfort and peace of mind in these areas.
Okay, outstanding. So internally, you've talked a lot about how there was a transformation that was required internally. I mean, if we dig down maybe to another layer, that there was an environment that you were looking at, containerized environment that you were looking to enhance the protections around and get into that critical space. Can you maybe just tell us a little bit more about the sort of the key actions and decisions that sort of led up to that realization and how you sort of fine-tuned that prioritization of what you were looking for? With some changes along the way? Was there some other factors that sort of came in to drive those decisions?
Yeah, sure. Look, I mean, we had a couple of different initiatives in flight at the same time.
Mm.
With our core hosting platform, we were about a month out from go live of that solution, and the other product that we'd selected to protect our containerized environment was experiencing a repeated scale-related issue. We spent a bit of time with that vendor, and to their credit, they really worked well trying to solve the problem with us. However, we'd realized that we just hit a limitation and it just wasn't going to work.
Right.
So, we'd initiated this massive infrastructure transformation, about to go live, backup solution doesn't work. We'd looked at the Veeam Kasten solution a little bit earlier in the piece, and there were a couple of things that weren't quite ready for us at that time. But when we pivoted, we looked at it again. And one of the things that we were really, really impressed about is the speed with which the Veeam team had added features to the product, because all of the things that were originally, I guess, sort of showstoppers for us, they'd all been addressed.
Mm.
You know, we did a proof of concept. The Veeam engineering team worked hand in hand with our tech teams to prove, hey, Kasten can absolutely solve your problems today. And that's something, an approach, I guess, to doing business that we really look for in a partner. We don't want to just be sold at. We want someone to come in and say, hey, you know what? I back my product. I'll sit with you. I'll prove the value. We'll show that it works, and we'll move forward in partnership together. And that's something that the Veeam team really did for us. So, I mean, so impressed that feature set had come leaps and bounds. It delivered granular application-aware backups and single file restore capability for us, which is exactly what we need, a perfect fit, a really strong roadmap of features going into the future. So gave us a degree of confidence that not only will it meet our needs today, but it's going to grow and scale and evolve with our needs as a business. Again, just so impressed with the way that the Veeam team has engaged with us.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Thanks for the insights there, Ben. I can't imagine, when you're dealing yourself. I mean, us as a vendor coming in, we obviously think about stakeholders and who we need to engage to help support the decision making. And internally for you, I mean, can you maybe share a little bit around, what that was like for you as well, and how you were sort of managing? Because you mentioned this was sort of like a fairly fast decision to come back and pivot, as you mentioned, to revisit the solution. I mean, how was that around managing your own internal stakeholders and sort of helping to convince that sort of relook at Kasten?
Yeah, look, oftentimes, I guess, stakeholder management and bringing, not only the hearts and minds of the, I guess, the executives that are signing the purchase orders, but also the tech teams, right? And we certainly do know that the technical folk, can have very strong opinions around the way things that should be done, or the
Yep.
products that should be in play. That can be a challenge. In this instance, it wasn't that big a deal. Like we're at a point where, the existing solution, it's simply not going to work. Like there's no way that we can move forward without it. So,
Mm.
we had the tech teams, they had recognized that, and they had been scanning, I guess, the market and the landscape for what other alternatives that there might be to help us deliver on our objectives. We had senior executives, across the problem, so close to a go live. That's something that I flagged across my peer group and upwards to my CTO. Pretty much as soon as I realised, hey, look, maybe we're not going live when we said we might. So everyone was on board, and one of the great things about Aussie Broadband is the not being tied to the way, well, this is the way it's done. This is the road that we've committed to. We really embrace a culture of around stopping, evaluating, and if something's not working, pivot and pivot quickly. So, that pivot, it was embraced. We'd done some proof of concept work internally. We had the support of the Veeam engineering team to do a wider scale proof of concept. And we basically proved out that it worked. And we were able to implement it and deliver it quickly. Like I think the core platform was in under a day, and within 2 weeks we'd had a couple of 100,000 resources migrated from the legacy product over into the Kasten solution, which is just I guess breakneck speed. And we went live on time.
I mean, that obviously speaks significantly as well to your commitment to your external stakeholders, the public, and hence why you're being regularly voted the most trusted telco. So maybe we could sort of shift a little bit now. As this was going on, obviously there's other priorities in place. You're dealing with some other challenges in this space because again you're in a heavily regulated industry. It's not just the SOCI Act that you're covered by. There's other elements that you're obviously juggling with. And if we bring the sort of the picture back to critical data again for a moment and think about your internal critical applications, and maybe we can sort of talk more specifically around your Microsoft 365 and that kind of space. I believe there was a decision at some point to kind of broaden the scope of what you were trying to address when it came to resiliency and data protection. So maybe you could help sort of talk a little bit more on that as well.
Yeah, so big organisations such as ourselves, we've got a lot of balls in the air at any given time.
Yes.
Across another part of the organisation within our enterprise IT function, they've been looking at their M365 backup solution for some time.
Mm,
Uh, the existing incumbent solution that was protecting that, it's a complex one to manage. We were running into scale issues. We were not able to action restore requests or data protection requests in a good time frame due
mm,
to reliance on overly burdened specialized skill sets. So the business had made a decision to exit that incumbent platform anyway. We were bringing on one of our acquisitions and integrating the M365 and the Active Directory, or the Entra ID as they call it these days, tenancies together.
yeah,
So we had, I guess, we were looking at, well, we've got to add, nearly another 1,500 seats. What's the right decision here? We don't want to further entrench ourselves in a solution that we've already said that we want to exit. So we looked at the VDC solution, and we were sort of talking with our account team on the Caston solution at the same time. The VDC solution seemed really, really straightforward. We liked, again, the simplicity that it offered. We liked that it was a SaaS platform and there weren't, servers and applications that we needed to train people up and administer ourselves.
right.
So yeah, it seemed like number one, a good piece of low-hanging fruit to get out of the existing platform and have one less thing in that, and sort of be on the way to being able to retire that, and also move into, I guess, a strategic backup platform in Veeam that we are using in other parts of the business as well. And again, we're able to deploy that really, really rapidly. And it's delivering far better results than what the incumbent solution had been. And look, we just don't need to worry about it, which is a great thing, right? It gives us all of the protection and the resiliency of that core sort of email identity type data, and we just don't have to worry about it, which is great.
Yeah, awesome to hear. I mean, I love that story, and obviously it feels great to know that we're able to play such a strong part in how you're doing that. So, being in this space and having regulators looking over your shoulder, you've told us a lot about the success that you've garnered out of the approach that you took, and I'm just wondering, with everything that you'd heard leading up to this point around data resilience. I mean, everyone's talking about resiliency, whether it's operational or cyber or data resiliency. Was there anything like any myth that you'd heard along the way that you kind of felt like was debunked as you were, sort of going down this journey with us, or was there something that sort of came out of, what you were doing that was a bit of a surprise that you hadn't expected?
I'm not sure if there's like any myths debunked or surprises. And look, again, I think that's something that I really like about the Veeam platform, is that there are no surprises. Surprises when it comes to data protection and resiliency are not things that I would look forward to.
Yeah,
I want it to just work, right? But certainly we are looking and thinking about, well, we know that there is some features within the Veeam platform that will help us, I guess, in our regulatory compliance, that will, I guess, give us a greater degree of confidence around, is our backup data secure? So we're certainly looking into, well, how can immutable backups, help us,
Mm,
in that respect. We are also looking at, well, we've got these annual, certification, regulatory things and compliance things that we need to go through, and often, pulling together all of the stuff that we need to pull together for those audit processes. It takes a lot of time and effort, and we are certainly looking to the features of the Veeam platform around, well, how does it help streamline, that evidence gathering aspect of, things like ISO 27001 and
Yeah.
PCI DSS. So those are, I guess, are the things that we're starting to look at within the regulatory landscape and where Veeam's able to help us there.
Look, I love that. I think we can't understate the importance of that auditability, right? I mean, more and more we're not just now being mandated to implement these controls and these solutions to solve the outcome, but it's also to demonstrate the proof that we've achieved that
Yeah.
and that can be provided. Yeah, look, that makes absolute sense, Ben. Um, so as you look out for this year, then, I mean, you've talked about really what's next for yourselves at Aussie Broadband, but what do you recommend the folks who are listening in to us now? What should they be paying attention to right now? They've listened to your journey. What do you think is kind of the high priority now going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, advice to other people and things to focus on, get the basics right, build a really solid foundation
Mm,
in your core platforms, of which, data protection and resiliency is one of those, and just get it working. When you've got a solid foundation, you don't have to, I guess, you don't get stuck in that firefighting mode. You're not spending all of your time paying attention to things that should just work, and that frees you up to focus on your strategic initiatives.
yeah, absolutely. Look, Ben, I mean, this has been an incredible session just to hear where you've been. I think, if I sort of reflect on what you've talked about today, I mean, some pretty amazing results, I think, around starting off where you were, where you felt like there was a challenge around not just the resilience piece, but in terms of scaling out with your business as it's growing. A lot of decisions that were happening concurrently and a sort of a shift at the last minute to maybe reconsider and come in and provide the speed, not just the integration, but just getting things up and going. And we hear a lot of folks talking about, return on investment and being able to see that immediate value. But also coming from the position where you're operating in such a highly complex, highly dynamic environment with regulators and, your accreditations that you're maintaining as an organization. So, I mean, really, really fantastic insights. Look, I couldn't be more pleased to hear what you've said and the fact that Veeam has been able to support you in that journey and allow you to sort of scale to meet these requirements ongoing. And I think hearing where you're going and the fact that we're still able to be your partner in that space and come on that journey with you. I think there's a lot that we can be doing around where you're going around the compliance and the security space. And I know that there's going to be continued success from Aussie Broadband. You'll continue to be that trusted telco provider in Australia, and again, we're more than happy as a trusted partner to be with you on that journey. So, look, Ben, I can only thank you so much again for joining me today in our reality check session, and wish you all the best. And thanks again for your time.
Yeah, thanks, David. Really appreciate you having me here today, and appreciate all the support that we get from the Veeam team, and really looking forward to continuing to work with you guys.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Ben.